Okay, I think I'm going to go ahead and get started. As people come in, we're just going to take care of some housekeeping issues. But my name's Trish Gunby. I am state rep in the 99th district, and I know there's some folks on the Zoom who aren't in the district, so welcome. The 99th includes Manchester, Twin Oaks, Valley Park, and some unincorporated St. Louis County. And I won re-election this past year. So here we are. We're off to a good start. First town hall of 2021. And as I mentioned, Representative Rasheen Aldridge will be joining us a little bit later in the Zoom meeting. And I'm real excited that he's able to share the Zoom stage with me tonight. I also want to just lift up some folks that are on the Zoom meeting. There are some elected officials on the meeting. Mayor Mike Clement with Manchester had signed up, so he is on this call, I believe, and Alderwoman Megan Huther. And there are also members of Parkway's equity team on it, and I know Superintendent Keith Marty is on the call. So welcome to them. I don't know if I'm missing anybody else, but we are going to ask you to use the chat function. So if we are, feel free to let us know you're here. And even for those of you who, if you just want to type in your name and where you're from, I think it's nice for everybody to kind of know who's joining us. So welcome, welcome. And I'm going to turn it over to Elizabeth. Elizabeth Condon is my legislative assistant, and she will give you some Zoom etiquette. So
Yeah,
take it away.
thanks, Trish. So just so you all know, we are recording this meeting and we'll be recording the chat as well. So just make sure you keep that in mind. My name is Elizabeth Condon. I use she, her pronouns. I am Representative Gunby's legislative assistant. I also work for Representative LaDonna Applebaum, and I know one of my favorite of LaDonna's constituents, Randy Steffen, is on today. And so I've been in LA for 3 years now. This is my 5th session, including when I interned for Senator Jill Shoup in 2017. I have my bachelor's degree in political science from Truman State University. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. Zoom norms. So the goal here is for most of y'all to just stay muted. Please use the chat function for any questions that you might have. Please feel free to send them to everyone or just send them to me directly. Don't send them to Trish. Don't send them to Trish or Rasheen. Send them to me, please, or everyone. If you have questions as they're speaking, please feel free to go ahead and send them in the chat as they pop into your mind. But we may just not get to them until the end. And then we may also just leave out questions entirely. We've gotten a couple that are like a little off topic, which is fine. But we have limited time tonight. So any questions that go unanswered, we will follow up in an email. If you have any problems or get kicked out, let me know. I'll send my cell phone number in the chat right now so you guys can text me if you have issues. But other than that, I think that is all.
Great. Thank you, Elizabeth. She is my lifeline, believe me. When I started this job, you need somebody who knows what's going on. And so she has been great in getting me up to speed. So we're really excited to get this session off and running. We're going to divide the evening into 3 parts. There's a lot to take in. And as I mentioned, you'll be able to have the slide deck. So if you have other questions at the end of this, we'll obviously follow up. I'm going to give you a brief update about session. I'm going to talk about my involvement in racial justice issues and obviously introduce you to Representative Rasheen Aldridge of District 78. And then we're going to do some Q&A and see how much time we have left. So we'll get you out of here. I obviously honor everybody's time and get you out of here by 8:30. I just want to say that with this topic, whenever race is discussed, it's obviously a difficult topic, but I believe one that should be at the forefront of all our discussions. And if you don't feel uncomfortable talking about it, then you aren't going deep enough. Because I think many of us, I will speak for white people, have been very comfortable not talking about this topic. And what I have learned in my um, pursuit of learning as much as I can is that it is not up to us to ask the Black community, the African community about their history. I believe it's incumbent upon us to learn. And so I just want to say that, and I will apologize to Representative Aldridge when he gets here, but I'm asking him to talk about it. So um, for the most part, though, it's incumbent upon us to do our own educating, and it is not incumbent upon the Black community to teach us. So that's what this is going to talk about, resources that you can use. But I do appreciate him joining me. We've really become good friends and colleagues. And so you're in for a real treat if you've never met him. So we're just going to go ahead and jump into the slide deck, and we'll talk about the 101st General Assembly, which got started on January 6th. And let me see.
One moment, I'm having some technical difficulties. Okay.
Elizabeth is, I can start talking. Oh, here we go. All righty. So the first 2 weeks of session, we started on the 6th, and we got sworn in, and we had a week of session, and then we came home because of a COVID outbreak. Not surprising, because half the people do not wear masks, but that's for another discussion. So the Senate stayed in session, but we were sent home. So we will start up again on Monday. I know there are some people still in quarantine who have COVID, so fingers crossed, we all stay healthy. But I wear a mask, and I ask my colleagues to, and I'm just hoping to stay safe so I can keep doing my job. The rules of the 101st General Assembly, and just to kind of get everybody up to speed, we are elected for 2-year terms. And at the beginning of every session, the whole General Assembly votes on rules, and those stick around for 2 years. And we tried to adopt some amendments, put some amendments on those rules, one that would require mask wearing, one that would require or allow virtual testimony for citizens, simply because traveling to the Capitol in the middle of a pandemic may not be a good idea. And we thought people should have virtual testimony. It would also be helpful to those folks who might have disabilities. And we tried to get that passed, an amendment about that. We tried to get some protections for LGBTQ House employees passed, and also some gender neutral language, just calling folks representatives. Right now, you can call people lady and gentleman when you address them on the House floor. So all of those amendments did not pass. And that's unfortunate, but that is what happened. So we don't have to wear masks. We don't have to provide virtual testimony. We're not going to make it easy for you to come testify. And we really aren't in sync with LGBTQ folks. So that's the start of the 101st General Assembly. With that, I want to also address the fact that I have a Democratic colleague who was censored. And that was an unfortunate experience, obviously, for all of us. The Ethics Committee met for the better part of all last year. We were unaware that that was going on. You do not find out about that until until their decision is made. And so he did not resign. I'm sure you've read about it in the news, and he did not resign. So we talked about it, debated it on the House floor. He was censored. That's the first time that has been done in the 200-year history of the House of Representatives. So we continue to, apparently some members continue to struggle with some of the rules, and it's unfortunate we had to begin session that way, but that is now behind us. We will be back next week, as I mentioned. The other thing that I just want to touch on is when we were being sworn in on January 6th, that time, during that time on the House floor, most of us were not really paying attention to all of that that was going on, because that was at the same time of the insurrection in our nation's capital. So for the most part, everybody was on their phone texting, reading all the news accounts of what was going on in Washington, D.C. And so what that meant for us is we had some security meetings. Our security is similar to what you might have heard about in our nation's capital. There isn't one security group that oversees everything. There's a Capitol Police group, there are Highway Patrol, there's Jefferson City Police, there are park rangers, there's National Guardsmen. It's a lot of different people. There isn't one group that oversees everything. So you're trying to manage all these different law enforcement agencies. And in the Capitol, people are able to have concealed carry. I know you've seen images in some state legislatures with people who have weapons on their person exposed. In Missouri, that can't happen, but people can come in and watch us in session from the upper gallery and have a weapon. And there are people on our House floor that have weapons, and we all don't know who those people are. And so security is an issue. I would imagine there's going to be more discussion around that after what's happened. But we have some work to do in our own house to make all of us feel safe, to make staff feel safe, and obviously to make citizens and visitors to the Capitol safe. So that will be an ongoing issue that we're going to have to deal with. So here we are. What is next? What can we expect moving forward? We have a Republican supermajority. They set the agenda, and here are the priorities that they have listed for this year. That includes adoption and foster care tax credits, COVID liability for businesses, that would be waived, changes to the initiative petition process. There have been some things on the ballot that you probably remember signing petitions to get stuff on the ballot, Clean Missouri, those kinds of things. Possible changes to that in terms of how signatures are gathered, the cost around that. So that's legislation that may come through. Stricter voter ID laws, right to work. Right to work was voted down, but we're hearing there might be legislation to change that. Wayfair tax collection, that's on internet sales taxes. We thought that would make it through last session. It did not. It will be back. Gaming is something we started discussing, and the shortened session, we weren't able to do much with that, but legalizing sports betting and regulating video lottery terminals that you might find at truck stops or in bars, that kind of thing, that's likely going to come up. Medicaid expansion was passed, but it has to be implemented. So that is something that we'll see what that looks like. Second Amendment expansion, there are folks who want to allow guns in schools, in churches, in daycare facilities, those sorts of things. So that is legislation that may come forward. And there's already been discussion about charter school expansion and education vouchers. So a lot can happen. I will tell you that right now, I think there's about 850 bills that have been filed in the House. And any given session, we have about 2,000 filed, and only 4% make it through to the very end because they have to go over to the Senate, and whatever's the Senate's doing has to come back to us, and we all have to be in agreement. So all this stuff isn't going to happen. What's going to determine what does move is what Speaker Rob Vescovo decides, what he refers to committee. And then once those things come out of committee, it's up to Floor Leader Dean Plocher to decide what moves to the floor for debate. So if they're not in sync, things don't move. So we really haven't, there's been a few things that have started up, adoption and foster care tax credits, that's very dear to Speaker Vescovo. He was in the foster care system. And so obviously, when you're in that position, and I think that's a bipartisan effort, most people would be approve of that moving. So that's something that's already gained some traction. We'll kind of see what happens with the rest of the stuff. What am I working on? Well, I just got my committee assignments last week. I was on utilities and veterans last year, and a special committee on student accountability. That has not been, the special committee hasn't it's not going to be around. So I am on economic development. I'm on utilities again, veterans. They've expanded the Veterans Committee to include issues relating to terrorism. So I don't know what that's going to be, but it used to be a real feel-good committee. So now that they've added terrorism, not so much feel good anymore. So I'll be curious to see what happens with that. And then Ways and Means, we consider state taxes and tax credits. So I've got a lot to read and learn about, but I'm excited about that. I have filed several bills already. I've co-sponsored a resolution that Representative Peter Meredith did that is asking Senator Hawley to resign after his involvement in things that went on January 6th. The bills that I'm bringing back are ones that I filed last year. 3 that I will highlight include, oh, thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Democracy.
Thank you. There's one that allows, and some of these, it's interesting. Some of these, I thought it myself. Others, folks come to you and say, hey, would you consider sponsoring this? And others you co-sponsor with other legislators that you feel passionate about. So allowing students to leave school to vote. A tax credit to offset gun safety mechanisms. This is a bipartisan bill. Basically, we're asking people to store their weapons. And if you buy a gun storage safe, whatever sales tax you pay on that, you would get that back in the form of a tax credit. So gun safety. A constituent had asked me about online service portals for those in the insurance industry. So that was one I filed. And then actually, Mayor Clement reached out to me about rental protections for persons diagnosed with PTSD. And that is one I have Republican sponsors who, in order for my legislation to move, I have to find Republicans to move it for me. And I know I've already heard on the PTSD bill of a colleague of mine, a Republican colleague, who is interested in the PTSD bill. So I'm excited about that. And then when we had a special session on crime this last summer, I drafted a bill that asks political subdivisions and that would be across the state law enforcement agencies following the death of George Floyd, asking them to review their policies, their procedures, their practices, and develop plans for improvement. That feels very bipartisan to me, because given what's happening, certainly in our country and in the St. Louis region specifically, I don't see anything wrong with asking law enforcement agencies to resume, to make their policies and procedures, to review them and to share them with all of us. So that's another one that I will be advocating for. You can sign up for my Capitol report. There's a link here that tells you every week what I'm doing, and you can follow along with that. The other thing is Elizabeth has created a virtual office for me, and I will let her show it to you.
I'm so excited about these virtual offices. I had a lot of fun putting them together. So it's a Google slideshow. So you'll click present when you're ready to look at it. You don't have to click present, but it makes it prettier. And so then you can just like mouse around, and when you see your cursor change from like the pointy to the finger, you can click on things. So you can learn all sorts of things. You can click to learn about Trisha's bills, which will take you to that Fast Democracy page we just looked at. If you click on the state seal, it'll take you to just the general House website. If you click on this, it'll take you to send me an email to RSVP for tonight. And then the coolest part is here you can schedule a meeting with Trish. So you can choose 15 minutes or 30, and you can choose a phone call or a Google Meet, and then it will put it on her calendar and put it on your calendar, and then you get to meet with Trish, which is really neat. It's a lot cooler than that. You should check it out.
Well, and the thing is, like, what's so cool about this is what you're seeing on this page, like these are things that are actually in my office. These books, these photos of my family, the outfit I have on.
The color I exactly color
Yes,
matched.
yes. It's pretty amazing. And she took, I believe, because our school districts and our teachers have had to do so much virtual learning. I think she took a chapter from their playbook and decided to create this. So thank you, public schools,
Yes.
who have had to do this, and you're doing it very well. We are copying you, basically.
Yes.
So that's something that's kind of exciting. Okay, we are going to kind of jump in. I think, I just want to mention too, if you want to follow along any of the bills, whether it's stuff that it's happening here in the state or at the federal level, go visit fastdemocracy.com. That is a free site. You can pick all the topics you're interested in, and they will send you emails as bills are filed, as they move to committee, onto the House floor, what happens. And that's a great way to stay on top of this, because there's so much going on. It's hard to do it on your own. So that will be on the resource list. You can find out more if you choose to. Okay, we're going to jump into tonight's topic. This question was on my survey last year, and we mailed those surveys. I do want to say this year the survey will be online, and we will mail copies to those individuals who either don't want to or can't do it online. But for the most part, it will be online. So that we're waiting for that to get posted. But the survey that was mailed out last year, we asked people, in your opinion, should the St. Louis metropolitan region prioritize addressing issues of race? And this is how my district voted for the most part. As you can see, about 60%, a little over 60% strongly agree that race should be prioritized. About 13% had really no opinion. And then we had about 20% that disagreed that it should. And I want to note that this survey was done before George Floyd was killed. And I think if we think back to that time in May and June when that happened, there was literally an outpouring across the country, across the world. And that same question is on my survey this year. So I'm curious to see what happens with this question, given what has happened with that movement. So that's kind of what folks felt about it, at least in my district. And with that, we kind of jump into my personal journey. Before we get to, I don't know if is Rasheen on yet. Can you see?
I don't think so yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Yeah, I will text him.
Okay. No, I was going to just tell my journey my personal journey first. For me, I grew up in Texas. I moved here in my teens, and my knowledge around racial justice issues was limited, to say the least. I think I knew about the Civil War, and I knew the North won, but that didn't change things for the Black community. And I just went about my business. So I'm obviously a white woman of privilege and living in West County. I did live in the city when my husband and I moved back here 30 some odd years ago. And so I was just going about my business. I graduated from high school before the DSEG program started. So in my high school, which I went to Parkway West, as did Rasheen, we are alums together. There were 3 Black persons in my school. So that was my experience, and we did not hang out together. So when Michael Brown was killed in Ferguson in 2014, that was a wake-up call for me personally. And I realized that I was not educated on the issue of race in our region. And so personally, I just started attending events. up in Ferguson. I did stuff through my church. I did stuff through the Missouri History Museum. I did the YWCA Witnessing Whiteness class. I just kind of immersed myself. I did vigils with West County Community Action Network, and started a social justice ministry at my church that included racial justice as a component. And the thing in doing all of that, which led me literally to where I am today, because nobody would have asked me to run for office if I hadn't been doing those things. This had never been on my radar. So I was doing all this personally, but then trying to educate and share what I had learned with people more in my faith community. And when I discovered so much information, so much history that I literally had not been taught, that I did not know about, that I could not believe happened. And I just felt like I had to put myself in a place where I could have a platform to do that. And so when I wasn't elected, I was doing that. And now that I'm elected, I get to do it some more. So I'm excited about that, but there's so much work to be done, because I feel like when you hear and about the details of history that most in the Black community know about and live every day, I think as a white person, if you're not moved to do something, then I don't know. Do you have a heartbeat? That's all I got to say about that. So anyway, that's where I am right now. I met Rasheen early on when I was running for office back in 2019. I met him at a rally, one of the first people I met. We developed a bond. He won a special election at the same time that I did. So we were sworn in. We were 6 of us won special elections. There was 1 Republican and 5 Democrats. So Rasheen, we were 2 of the 5 Democrats. And so we share this unique bond because we came in together. And at the end of last session, during the special session on crime, when the state legislature was passing legislation that had to do with local control of policing in the city, he and other members of his Black caucus stood up and, asked people to learn about their districts and to learn about their constituents. And he invited all of us to come tour his district, because here we were, obviously, in my opinion, overreaching what our jobs were. Our jobs, that's why we're called state legislators. I didn't believe that we should be talking about the city of St. Louis. So he invited us to tour his district. And I toured the district with him while we were off last year, and had no idea that his district is, it's sort of like a kind of a flat sea. It extends from the northern part of the St. Louis City region all the way down through Busch Stadium and down along the river. And so I loved the tour because it was such a rich and vibrant community and so many cool things. And I said, you can come out to my district and you can see Costco and you can see Walmart and you can see, so a little bit different things to tour in my district. I still love it, but not really the history that District 78 has. And in that effort, there's been some stuff in the news recently about how we're working with the Cardinals to hopefully get a monument up about the slave history that we have in this region. So that's how we came to be connected. And there he is. He has joined us. So we're going to move. I'm going to move to a slide, Rasheen, and I'll let people read it. It's got your bio. And then I'm just going to let you talk.
I'm
Not
cool with that.
okay. So here we go. Oh, I can't read it all because I've got to get rid of my.
Look at the picture. We just took that
I
like
know we just took that picture. Um, I'm cut off here, Elizabeth. I don't know how to get rid of me. Oh, there I am. Okay, here we go. He serves in the 78th district. He won that special election I mentioned in November 2019. He was elected to his first term in November 2020. He has a passion for justice and he served in leadership roles with the Show Me 15 Workers' Rights Movement and Missouri Jobs with Justice. He was appointed by Governor Jay Nixon to serve on the Ferguson Commission, which was established after the death of Michael Brown to conduct a thorough, wide-ranging, and unflinching study of the social and economic conditions that impede progress, equality, and safety in the St. Louis region. And without further ado, I welcome my friend, my colleague, Representative Rasheen Aldridge.
Thank you so much for having me, Trish. I was gonna hopefully had it on my MacBook, but my camera's been acting up, so I got it on my cell phone. So I'll try to keep it as straight as possible. It is a true honor to be with all the residents of the 99th district. Like Trish mentioned, I am the state representative of the 78th district. If you look at the 78th district on the map, it literally is the end line or the start, I guess, if you want to say. But we take in all the rivers, all of downtown, and it starts as far north about Hyde Park. It started to come south into Old North St. Louis. You take in St. Louis Place Park, Car Square, and Old North is the famous Crown Candy, which me and Trish was our starting location because you gotta start at Crown Candy. And as you continue going, south, it takes in Soulard, all of downtown, Ben Park West, Lafayette, and then a little chunk of Dutchtown. So it's a very diverse district, and I think it's a district that speaks to me. So before we go into, I guess, the politics of stuff, but a little bit about me is I was born and raised here in the city of St. Louis. I knew as a young person, one way or another, I was going to be an activist, I should say. When I laid inside my mom, I didn't get proper blood flow. I didn't get the blood flow to my right leg wasn't properly flowing because I was being a rebel, kind of laying on it. So it didn't get proper flow. So what happened on top of trying to come out butt first, my mother had to get a C-section with me. And since I laid on my right leg, the right side of my leg grew shorter than the left side of my leg. So I wear a full length prosthetic. And my foot stops a little bit above a little bit below my knee, above my shin. I'm a unique case of individuals that have prosthetic because my leg isn't amputated. It was since it grew, it didn't properly grow. What the doctors at Shriners Hospital, for a child to go through something that you didn't ask for and you came into the world like this, it can be a lot. The Shriners Hospital played a tremendous job with making other kids like myself feel a little normal, a place to kind of go run away. It's weird. I used to always have to have surgeries, and I would appreciate to go into surgery, a lot of recovery, but just to be able to be in Shriners Hospital with other kids that had the same situation and the way the staff was. With living in the city of St. Louis, I was part of DSEG program. So me and Trish are connected in so many ways. I tell her that I feel like the stars have aligned us with both coming in on a special election and both also being Parkway grads. Now I'm a little younger, but we both did graduate. Both graduated from Parkway. I went to Parkway my whole career. So from kindergarten, I woke up early and got on the bus around 5:30, sometimes a little later as you went to middle school and high school. But I graduated from Parkway West in 2012. At the time of being at Parkway West, I also attended South Technical High School to take up a trade. My family had a lot of student debt. I didn't come from a rich family. And after hearing my mom and after hearing my brother talk about this alarming amount of debt that they took on and still trying to, survive, I was like, I don't know if I really want to go down that route and continue another burden, not only on me, but on my family that just isn't there. So after high school, I went to St. Louis Community College. And in that time, I would say for me going to Parkway and living in the city of St. Louis, I always had these special lenses on of seeing two different worlds, of living in the city and feeling like there was no opportunities. There was no community park. Tense relationship amongst my community and law enforcement. But when I would go to the county and I would stay at my friend's house, it felt like a total different world. And for me, I think that really is what drove me into politics, even though I didn't expect it to be that. It was more activism at first, being involved with the Fight for 15, low-wage workers. It started with fast food workers. Now you have healthcare workers, janitors, home
Tell
care
them what
workers.
tell them what the 15 means. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Fight for 15 is a movement that started in 2012 here in St. Louis. My store was one of the first to go out on strike, but it is we say Fight for 15 because we're advocating for $15, which is a livable wage, and to be able to have the right to unionize if the workers want to on the job. As somebody, I've trying to move out on my own and also supporting my mom and supporting the household I live in. The reality is a lot of people in these jobs really wasn't my age. It wasn't young folks. It was mothers that had kids, that had high school degrees that, unfortunately after '08 and a lot of jobs when we after the recession found themselves to be in these low wage industries that have really monopolized and made it to a point where we're used to saying minimum wage is okay. And on top of it, making, as I call it, slave wages, on top of making such low wages, they're, being treated horribly on the job. You don't have an extra voice or protection. Again, if the workers want to unionize, to be able to, be that voice if any incident happened, harassment, sexual assault, anything, you don't have nobody to go to. And it happens quite often in these jobs. So I was part of that, and it's so good to see our new administration come in and say that's going to be one of the first couple of things of being able to pass on a federal level a minimum wage hike of $15 an hour. And from that, I remember 2014, the death of Mike Brown. I was working at National Alamo, and I seen it come across my cell phone, and I seen the Facebook ads, and I was like, honestly, I felt like I seen this story before of the death of a young person that looks like me and at the hands of police officers, and felt like not much will change. And then I got on Twitter and I got outraged by seeing the way that the community was being treated in that moment as they were just asking questions, and seeing how a body lay there for 4.5 hours. I think regardless of how do you feel about the indecision, if guilty or not, it's just some things that, we wouldn't leave a cat or a dog to lay out that long. So I went out to the community to try to use the skills I learned in the Fight for 15 to just ask questions. And conversation is always important. And even though that's not my community, there's a level of respect of saying what happened. And from that, I went from asking questions to being upset, and found myself out there every single day in Ferguson after day 2, trying to find justice, trying to find change, not understanding why it was so hard to even get an apology from the officer to the victim that is now gone. The governor appointed a Ferguson commission, and somehow, some way, I, got appointed onto it. And I think it was a very important commission because it just doesn't focus on Ferguson. I would recommend as many people to read the report. It was made up a very diverse group of commissioners. We traveled to North County, South County, North City, South City, to really hear from people on how do we not just improve the situations in Ferguson, but how do we improve all these situations that exist in our community, regardless of what party, what religion. We all want to live in a place where we're safe. We all want to live in a place where we're treated fairly and just. And I think in the report, that's where we really tried to come up with a roadmap. And from that, because I like to engage, and sometimes I don't want to talk too much. But after the Ferguson Commission, one cool thing that did come out of it was being able to meet President Obama, former President Obama, to talk about criminal justice reform and how do we really pass policies that can not just benefit one neighborhood, but clearly there are some neighborhoods that are needing the attention more. but how do we make sure we do stuff that brings us all together? No matter if it's the community of color and police, no matter if you live in a zip code that is 63106, or the median income is 15,000, which is in my district, or 63105, which is Clayton, and the median income is 90,000. And that somehow drove me to politics and being able to really address a lot of unjust things and laws that have been existing on the books forever. And how do we reform certain things that we make sure that everyone is at the table and have a voice? Again, no matter your race, your gender, your religion, everyone deserves to be treated equally and deserves to have opportunities, no matter where they live, no matter who they love, or no matter where they went to high school. Because we love to do that in St. Louis. Ask where'd you go to high school? But that's a little bit about me. And my friendship with Trish, it has really, Trish is a phenomenal state representative. We both came in on a kind of weird timing with a mid-session, and on top of COVID, we really had to get down to work. And one thing about Trish that gravitated me to her is her willingness to just ask a question, the willingness to, we're up there to represent our district. The 78th district looks very different from the 99th. But as we represent our districts, we're also passing legislation that affects the whole state. And Trish was someone who was willing to make hard decisions, but also willing to ask a question to the ones that affected the most. And she has just been so great to work with. I'm excited. When we went on our tour, she walked up to me after I, made my comment on the floor saying, come to the 78th, come to Lakeisha's district, come to Representative Anderson district, and we should also come to Representative Gumby district so we can understand each other a little better as we serve in this capital. And before I can know it, I turned around, Trish was right there trying to set up a date and time to come visit. She did. And it just continues to be, I don't want to say bipartisan because we're on the same team, but sometimes we even divide ourselves in St. Louis from St. Louis City and St. Louis County. We're much stronger when we do come together and make sure that we all have our equitable lenses on. And I'm just so grateful to serve with Trish, and so grateful to be here with all you guys, to be able to have a conversation on some of the things that we've kind of embarking on as state representatives.
Thanks, Rasheen. I pulled some questions that were left on my survey last year, and I thought we would just, I'll ask you a few of those. And then somebody also wrote in a question when they registered for this Zoom event. So why don't we just get started? One of the questions from the survey last year was, do you think politics makes racism divisive?
Do I think politics make racism divisive? Oh, so we're about to enter the Shane Bean corner. I'm gonna be honest, and I would anybody also want you guys to be honest with me, because I think, and within having conversations, we can learn a lot from each other. Do I think politics have made racism, you said, divisive?
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say it has played a role. Racism has existed in all, and it does still exist in all sectors and all systems. It exists in politics. It exists in policy. It exists in education. It exists in economics, healthcare. As we look at COVID-19, majority of people that have been affected by this virus has been women and communities of color, because of the lack of healthcare opportunities, the lack of access to healthcare, in which we can talk and say, yes, that is due to, in the city of St. Louis, there's a Team Forward plan under a former mayor that strategically said, how do we, drive out population in one part of the area and drive into another part of the area. So it definitely exists. And I think politics, depending on the individual, it can play a role. I wouldn't say politics have driven racism, but it has definitely been, when you look at, again, a lot of our policies that are on the books that hold people back from being able to just vote after they come out from being in jail, incarcerated on probation, parole, right? Or make it harder.
Rasheen, I think you put your palm on your phone's
Oh,
microphone and you
I
really
think
muted yourself.
sorry about that. I'm using my phone instead of the computer, but no, yeah, yes, it has. I wouldn't say that politics have driven the division of racing, but it plays a role. But it is intertwined in everything that we do, from the clothes that we wear. Um, it's really just up to the person. Not saying you have to be that conscious, but it is good to question and ask questions, and when it don't sound right, to be able to push back. But it is definitely something that is intertwined in the policies that Trish, in the last special session that we seen, even with our special session, which every time we go up to session and not doing it in a regular session, wasting taxpayer dollars, but that's a different conversation. But a special session that really didn't get majority of the priorities completed by the governor, but they were very driven at St. Louis City, very driven at the first circuit attorney, who overwhelmingly, again, we're coming off of, if we believe the process and believe people that got elected, overwhelmingly got elected by the city of St. Louis, not once, but twice, and try to attack her and attack and make policies harder for people of color, even juveniles, being treated as an adult. And we know who that would disproportionately affect, instead of trying to figure out how do we be smarter on crime? How do we make sure we address crime at the root cause, and not on the defense element of things?
Can you just, I'm going to kind of just go right there then. Can you talk about that, the language around defunding the police?
You jumped straight in, Trish. I thought maybe we were
gonna cut right
no,
to it. There we go.
No, I appreciate you asking, because this is something that has been not just controversial, I think, within our party. It has been used from the other side. And as you talk about how does racism play a role, of how even tactics and words of defund the police can be used in a way to scare people, of saying, oh, if they mean defund the police, they don't want you to have law enforcement. You're going to have an angry mob at your door. And that's not it. And that continues to drive us and divide us. So as someone who has been out in the streets during Ferguson, in 2017 during Jason Stockley, and even recently when we seen the death of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, one thing I do want to make clear, the reason that we go out to the streets in the Black Lives Matter movement is to say that we're asking for a change. I work with many law enforcement officers, Captain Creasman in my area, and the NSO officers, because I know at the end of the day, until we come together, until we're able to have tough conversations and change things, a tense relationship isn't going to get us anywhere. And I think when people are saying defund the police, including myself that have said it, we're not saying, and I'm not saying, we should get rid of the police or even abolish the police. When we look at the city of St. Louis budget for the last, I'm young, but let's just say for the last 10 years, majority of those dollars go to public safety. When you look at the crime rate, much hasn't changed. So when people are saying defund, what we're saying is the same thing we do on the state level, literally every year. And I serve on budget. We reallocate funds out of transportation. We reallocate funds um, from individuals that are on food stamps. We reallocate funds from education. Or we can also say we defund, which that has also been said. We have defunded education in this last year due to COVID. Our governor has actually defunded the public safety budget this last year. And what people are saying is, how do we take some of those funds and reallocate them and put them in areas that will empower and uplift communities? How do we make sure we have safer streets again? And I shouldn't have to resort to calling the police. The police should be the last resort. They have a very tough job. And as an activist, as somebody who is part of Black, I can say it, they have a tough job. And that shouldn't be the first source that people should call. And what we're saying is to even get rid of that is how do we put those funds back into parks, recreation, after school activities. There's not, in my neighborhood, there's not a community center, there's not a park, let alone be lucky to have sidewalks. Those things go a long way when you look outside your window and you see buildings falling down, when you see decay. Of course, the city has lost population, but again, if we go back to the first question, some policies have intentionally drove population from one area to another. But how do we rebuild back communities where people don't feel like they're just existing in the neighborhood, but they really feel like that they're part of it? So they make themselves be a block captain. They're going to the neighborhood meetings. So that's when we say defund the police, what we mean. How do we reallocate funds and put it back directly into law enforcement? Because doing the same thing for years and years and getting the same result is a little crazy to me. And I am willing to try something new. And if that does not work, we can go back to the same thing. But what we know that has not been working is overfunding public safety and getting the same results in high crime, distrust of communities of color and police officers. How do we support them by taking some of that stress off and give it to social workers to be able to work with law enforcement? How do we take that stress off and say, let's put it into the community centers, let's put it to the urban league, let's put it into a better family life, and make sure that they're in the community directly, ones that they can relate with and don't feel fearful of, change their mindset and change the way that they think on the community that they live in. And let's see how that works out. And again, if it don't, I'm a believer is we could go back to what we've been doing. But defund is saying, how do we reallocate and reimagine public safety instead of continuing to be tougher on crime? Because that has also not got us anywhere. How do we be smarter on crime? And that's what it means.
No, thank you for that, because I think that phrase has been, taken on a life of its own, and obviously means different things to different people. But, we've had these conversations. I think your explanation about using the budget as an example, I mean, we're defunding a lot of different things because we don't have the money, or we're taking money and putting it in different places. So I think that's helpful to folks on the Zoom, and I appreciate you sharing that. So what, just to give,
I would say, I mean, even though sometimes it is, as somebody on the side of the support, is a little uncomfortable when, I wouldn't say uncomfortable, it's frustrating, I think, when people try to use it in a way to divide, but also it reminds me of when we said Black Lives Matter. And the first reaction was, no, all lives matter. Instead of asking the question like you did, Trish, what do you mean by this? Instead of saying what they mean is hide your kids, be fearful. They're going to come out and it's going to be a mob and they're going to attack your house. That the goal of the protest is never to go after anybody, to go after anybody's home, to vandalize or to vandalize or to loot. It is to cause a cry of injustice of what's happening. So I remember when we said Black Lives Matter, the first response always used to be all lives matter, which all lives do matter. I have plenty of friends that do not look like me, from different religion to sexuality. I would never want anything to happen to them. Their life do matter. But it's saying, how do we make sure that everyone's life clearly does matter? If it's not in the criminal justice system, when we look at education, when we look at economics, we know that women are paid less than men, white women are paid less than white men, but we know that Black men and Black women are paid less than, white men and white women. So it isn't just in one field when we just say defund the police or Black Lives Matter. I think people try to put it all in one circle and in one corner when it's not that, and we're all intertwined and we're all allies, and we can learn from each other as well.
I'm going to do a little sidebar about the Black Lives Matter thing. Somebody said to me once, you don't go to a Susan G. Komen breast cancer walk and yell, all cancers matter. You're there for the breast cancer walk. What about lung cancer? What about pancreatic cancer? It's not that there aren't other cancers. It's that.
You don't go to a women's march and say, but men matter too. I mean, yeah, we know we matter, but that's not the point right now. And we all, again, we
Right.
all play a role in supporting each other's movement. I'm clearly not a woman, and I will stand each and every day with you, Trish, and so many other women on this call. And I know my role as a man is to be quiet and listen and learn. And that's we all are in this together.
Absolutely. Okay. So what some one of these can be kind of combined with another one. So what would you tell folks on this Zoom meeting? What well, first of all, what do you think the priorities around race should be? I think I read that in the city, they're actually trying to look at so many of the calls to police or social service calls and social workers being brought in. So they're reimagining ways so that, to your point, the police are kind of the last resort. But what do you think the priorities around race should be?
I'm happy you put an S on that because it's not one thing. Like you said, there's multiple priorities, and this is wherever your strength is. As legislators, when we go up to the Capitol, a lot of us file bills that are personal to us, like my limb loss awareness bill, a disability rights bill, because it's personal, but also things that we're strong in, things that really didn't drove us. If it's being a teacher and wanting to make sure that you're speaking up for the education and being somebody who's a teacher, you got more ins and outs and knowledge of how that sector work. Or if it's being a doctor, especially in times right now, we got a new freshman representative who has some healthcare background, especially in a COVID time. It is needed. So I would say the priorities are wherever your strong point is, if it's in education or if it's in economics or if it's in business or if it's in policing. I would go back to the Ferguson Commission report. I think the Ferguson, because one thing that we like to do is recreate the wheel. And I'm not saying don't recreate the wheel because I was on it. But what I'm saying is there's a lot in that report if you dive in. I think a lot of people, when they think the Ferguson Commission report, they think, oh, it's just about policing because of the death of Mike Brown. But it touches from education. It touches from healthcare. It touches from youth at the center, giving them the opportunities to thrive. So if youth, and making sure that our young people or have the same abilities, if not more than you did, that's your role. And that's what we say in the movement. Everyone has a role to play. If you're the loudmouth chanter like myself, or if you're the medic to make sure that no one's hurt, or making sure that as folks are walking that no car or anything comes by, right? We all have a role to play. So I would say it's hard to say one priorities. And I know in the commission, there's 180, I want to say 80 something or 90. There's a lot, but it's broken up. We try to make it really accessible to young people like myself, to the folks that have probably read plenty of commission reports. It's digital. It doesn't collect dust, so you can always get it, but it breaks it down from different opportunity or different categories. And what it also does is it tells you the accountability body of where this could potentially be done. So sometimes we have an idea of wanting to do something and the target is completely not, we're going to the governor, and it actually should be the AG. So it directs you to, if you're interested in making sure we have affordable access to transportation, this is who the accountable body should be: the House of Representatives, the Missouri Senate, and the governor. So it even goes into description about what actual means, what we put out, because we all want to be equal, but more importantly, we should all be equitable. We all can have boots, but it's the same. But we all can have boots, not have shoelaces, and that is the reality of the diversity that we live in when it comes to all our communities. Some are very high in poverty, some are not. So I think the Ferguson recommendations would be my 2 cents to tell people to really look into that. We don't have to recreate something. A lot of time has been put into it from folks all across the region, city and county. It's a good dive into, especially as we're in COVID times, to be able to read it and see the different recommendations and see 2 or 3 that you're really interested in. If it's transportation and education, and reach out to those bodies, and reach out to even still the Ferguson Commission still have an organization forward through Ferguson of people working on the recommendation. So if you have questions of how to get plugged into a recommendation that you want to make a difference on, there's a body that's still there. Even though the commissioners are gone, there's an entity that is still pushing to make sure these recommendations and the work that a lot of folks maybe even on the Zoom put into is actually brought into fruition and not just onto another commission. There's plenty of studies out there.
Yeah, in fact, Elizabeth, it's in the chat. There's and I add, it's on my resource list as well. So, obviously you were involved in that, and it is, there's so many different ways that people can tap in. There's no excuse to not get involved, basically. We had somebody, write in and let's see, wanting to know what steps you would recommend taking to reduce violence in the city and throughout the state, or how do we learn what steps and ways we might be able to help?
Ooh, can you say the question one more time? I feel like it's 2 in 1.
It is.
The
It's a
more
lot.
the merrier. No,
Yeah.
no, it's fine though. It's fine.
What steps we should take to reduce violence in our
Okay.
cities and possibly throughout the state?
Okay.
Basically, steps we should take to do that. What might help?
Yeah, I would say for as legislators, a big step that we can start to do is when it comes to how do we reduce violence, how do we reduce crime in the city, is not think first policing. In the city of St. Louis, we are down law enforcement officers. I agree. Police officers, more could be a help, but it comes back again to, if we look at why is the economic wages, medium income in the 63106 zip code 15,000, why is the life expectancy in that zip code only 68 years of age? In Clayton, Missouri, it is around, I want to say 79, close to 81, and this was in the Sake of All report. So it's also another good report I would recommend people to look at. But I think the way
aren't those zip codes, they're side by side, aren't they?
They're not. So 63106, that's just, sometimes the way we do our zip codes are not, but they're not side by side. So
okay.
They're close though. I mean, they're less than, if we were driving, because everything in St. Louis is so close, it's literally less than 7 minutes from 63106 or 63105.
Okay.
As soon as you hop on 40, you're right there. But I would say ways that we reduce crime is we really get to the root cause of it. We right now in the city of St. Louis, we have schools closing, right? That's going to be an impact on crime. We know education and having schools, and being somebody who went to Parkway, I also went to a summer school in my neighborhood. So I've seen not only the difference of community, but the difference of education, the difference of how a school looks, from lead pipes to the cool drinking fountains at Parkway where you can put your water bottle at, and it comes down automatically, from smart boards to still having chalkboards. It's a massive task that I think is amongst all of us. And I think many people that have, from the MLKs, as we're coming up and we just celebrated his day, to the Rosa Parks and many Black but also white great allies that have fought us to get to this point. We got a massive task on our hand. But I think the way we address it is through all these different systems, but we got to do it at the cause. We really have to say, how do we make education equitable? How are we able to, and it may hurt, right? How do we figure out a way where we can use some of funding for Parkway to help St. Louis City? Because one thing about it, and I don't want to take away from any kids in those school districts, but some school districts are maybe have a little bit more in budget than others, right? And that's just one. If it's not school districts, how do we make sure that there's grocery stores in areas where people are living in food deserts, right? All of people being hungry, not having access to healthcare, will make folks do things that aren't normal, and it's not right. But when you get in a headspace of just feeling defeated and you turn around and you see no schools, you see no community center, it can start to play a role. And I think what we have to do is and I'm just gonna be honest, in a selfless way, be a little selfless to be able to help others in different areas, to know that ultimately it's going to come back to benefit all of us. Because I'm not super religion, but I think it does say something in the Bible is we must help our brothers and sisters. Or even if you're not religion, we must just love each other, right? We must care and just be able to, see somebody and not say, well, that's on them. Being a little selfless, I think, in policy and resources and being equitable with it, can really deter the violence. We know that some areas have high violence and some areas don't. So we can look at the best practices all the way from the top to bottom. We can look at the complete difference of education, healthcare, and economics, because if we just tackle our criminal justice, and we love to talk about, and I love to
You froze.
say, but we
Uh-oh.
criminal and blame all of these. Hear me?
Repeat what you just said.
Here.
I can hear you now.
Okay, I'll wrap it. I'll wrap this cut. But no, I was just gonna say we can't just focus on the criminal justice. It's in all systems. It's in all sectors, and we have to be a little selfless. If anything, I would say out of all of that, because sometimes us politicians are like reverence and we get to talking, but it's being a little selfless to be able to help our brothers and sisters to make sure that they have the same opportunities to thrive. Because if they do good, trust me, it's going to benefit all of us in the long run.
Why don't you, I shared some of my legislation. I think folks may be curious to know what bills you filed.
Absolutely, Trish. Never miss a moment to do a little self plug there. So some things that I have filed is we're coming in last year. I think me and Trish feel a little bit more. And before I even talk about the bills, I have to give a huge shout out to your LA that is on Elizabeth. And there's also another LA that is on, I'm not going to call them out because I don't want to put them on the spotlight. We cannot do the jobs as a representative if it is not for our LAs, which is legislative assistants. They are so beneficial. And to have me and Trish come in new, to have somebody like Elizabeth that have institutional knowledge that can get you going from not just filing bills, and you have the constituent element of answering calls, and we didn't even have access to our emails, and we're getting emails. It is thank you all, and Elizabeth, make sure you tell Matt that I said thank him too. But some of the things that I found, one thing that I'm really passionate about is a bill that is trying to design Limb Loss Awareness Month as in the month of April in the state of Missouri as Limb Loss Awareness Month. So every month of April, already federally, recognize it as Limb Loss Awareness. And with having a leg shorter than the other, just knowing, the cost of a prosthetic right now, I'm actually, if I could hop downstairs, because the great thing about Zooms is you see this, but I don't have my leg on. And my leg is actually taped up right now. And that's due to a little bit on myself of not being on top of it. But luckily I got insurance, because if I did not, when I didn't have insurance and my leg was broke a couple years ago, it cost a lot. And without it, I could not get around. After hopping so long, you get a little worn out and you're like, I need to breathe. So, and just so many people that have lost it in war, just raising awareness to another group and to shine a spotlight on another group. So many people that we shine spotlights on, and just want to make sure that we can talk about how do we make things more accessible in the healthcare field, in the future for individuals that embarked on getting amputated and something that they didn't expect to happen. Two other things, and I don't want to go too deep about it, but two other things that I'm really excited about is working with a representative on the other side to eliminate the luxury tax on female hygiene products. Right now, there's an additional tax for us fellas. I did not know this, but when I was in
I don't think women know that. Didn't know
really,
it. I didn't
oh
know. I
wow.
mean, yeah.
I learned about it last year due to another representative working on it. There's an additional tax on female hygiene products, and the females did not ask for the magic that God gives them, and nor do us men pay an additional tax for. Well, we don't have to worry about it, but additional tax on really anything, if it's condoms or anything like that. So it's just, again, making it more equitable and fair. And also trying to work with a representative to make sure those products are offered in jails, in prisons to individuals that are in there. And then last one that I'll talk about, I got a slew of them that I'm introducing this week off of the Ferguson Commission report, but is individuals that are coming out of jail that are on probation and parole, restoring the ability for them to be able to vote. Right now, we have about 60,000 people in the state of Missouri that come out of prison that are productive individuals. I literally today, as we're home because of COVID, me and Trish, the Capitol's out. I walked to around the corner to La Mancha's across the street from Crown Candy, and I was talking to this gentleman. I'm a friendly guy. I was talking to him, and he told me I just got out. And I started to talk to him and let him know who I was, a politician. And he's like, he just got out. He would love to vote. Like since he's been out, he's been engaged. He's been going to the St. Louis Place neighborhood meetings and really trying to change his life around, but did not know since he was on papers that he could not vote or parole, could not vote until that was over. And I think it's just another mark that we put on people. We're asking them to pay taxes. We're saying we want them to have a voice in the neighborhood. It's really taxation without representation, because we're not allowing them to vote for school board, to be able to vote for their state representatives, their alder people that have a direct impact on your lights being on. Those are, I think, things that we shouldn't continue to make people feel like they're the black sheep. There's already been, I think, 18 states, including states like Texas and other more conservative states that have passed this measure where they're allowing people that come out of prison to be able to vote and restoring their ability to vote. So I think it's another, again, black cloud that we put on people, trying to say, we want you to be great. We definitely got to have a job. You got to support yourself, pay the taxes, do all the right thing, but you can have a voice no matter if your papers is 2 years and you've been good for a year and a half, haven't been arrested, you're part of the urban league, all things that we want people to come back and do. And then when they do, we're still saying, well, you can't do this. So that's something that I worked with Senator Rasheen on last year, really hoping to get done on the House side this year, and working with Senator Brian Williams this year on a criminal justice bill to hopefully try to eliminate no-knock warrants, chokeholds, change the use of force, and some other things.
Okay. I was looking, Elizabeth, were there some other questions in the chat?
Yes, there were.
Do you want to?
Yeah, so we have a couple.
Elizabeth?
Let me scroll up. Okay, so a question from Diane. I believe that many crimes are situational. A person gets desperate because of life circumstances. Why can't we use social workers, volunteers, and teachers to help those in trouble, put a plan or resources to help them get on track?
I think that's a statement, Diane, and I agree with you. Some communities need more wraparound services. Some communities need, like you say, people that I in my heart and head, and I've lost members to gun violence that are no longer here with me. But I don't think that there's an evil person in this world, right? So people that, now if you do something wrong, should be held accountable. But people that go out that rob a store or doing certain crimes, especially that are non-violent crimes, like you say, there's more to that. To go and steal a bag of chips, they must be hungry. Not saying it's right, but just to steal a bag of chips and some seeds and a soda is not right. But some areas need more wraparound services and support. And I know our teachers in the state of Missouri already do a phenomenal job trying to do as much as they can with a little bit of resources and pay that they get. And our social workers also do a phenomenal job when people connect to them that need counseling, which is okay. And as somebody that lives in the community that has been told that counseling is not always okay, it is. And so thankful for those individuals. But to Diane's point, I think, some communities need more nonstop services to be able to assist and help people, not give them a handout. I don't think no one's asking for a handout. People are asking for a hand up and to be helped so we all can be okay.
Thanks.
And then there's another one from Kevin Cameron for both of you. If you were to be a guest lecturer at West High, what would you ask the students to read or watch prior to your session?
Oh.
Read or watch?
That's a really good question.
That is a good one. Oh man.
The
Who asked this question, Kevin?
Ferguson report.
Okay.
No.
Well, I would actually, if it was since recently, if say we got called to go in next week or something, I would tell individuals to watch at Biden's inauguration, the young national poet that spoke. I think she did a phenomenal job, and I think it's a lot in a message within that poem that I would recommend a lot of people to go and read, to be able to start people off on a conversation about. It's an easy way to start the conversation. I think she did a good job, and I would recommend people to go check that out.
When I think back to my younger years, one of the books that had an impact on me is Why Bad Things Happen to Good People. And that would be a book I would recommend. And I tell you what, the other thing I would recommend is watching Roots. I remember when Roots the miniseries came out, and for those of you who are much younger than I am, the quality may not be there, but I'm telling you, those were really, for most of people my age, I'm 60, that was really the first time slavery got explained to us. I mean, for real. And it was a major shift and that was before cable and all this other stuff. So sometimes those things those are things I remember in my youth that I still think about. And even though I know the Roots has been redone, but I still like the original. I don't know that they'd want to watch.
I recommend it.
Huh?
I'm with you on recommending watching Roots. It's long, but I think that it's a good movie to watch.
Yeah.
Don asked, how do we get the legislature to support funding those best practices in social and physical infrastructure investment needed in underserved communities or neighborhoods so as to achieve our equity objectives?
Do you want to start on that one, Trish?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I said, did you want to?
Well, I was just actually, I had a couple of folks ask about, they asked about infrastructure, but more along the lines of roads and such. Mm-hmm. And I know this question has to do more about communities, but it's going to be a challenge. I mean, we're still in the midst of a pandemic. We made cuts last session. We're going to have to make cuts this session. This is going to extend into next year. And so when you're just trying to take care of people and take care of your institutions, it's hard to have extra money to, you know, do something with your infrastructure. So, I'm in favor of I don't know, I know there's legislation talking about taxes for roads and highways or toll roads, I mean, we're going to have to do something. I just don't think the revenue is going to be there for some of this stuff, because we're really, I don't want to say we haven't hit bottom yet, but this year and next year, it's going to be tough.
Yeah. Yeah, we're really in we're in a pickle, especially because with us changing our tax deadline and pushing it back when people were able to do their like state taxes, the revenue for that is not going into the correct budget that it usually would go into. It's going to go into a different one. So outside of, we know that we've lost some revenue. We have to be able to really move some things around to, on the budget side of things, to really know where we're at. I don't think people in appropriations know exactly, and we will soon with different departments, to know exactly where our budget will look like for this year, especially as the governor is starting to still restore some cuts and still not restoring some cuts. I will say, great things were not broke. We were very tight. One thing that in the city of St. Louis, Treasurer Tashara Jones is saying is, we're not a poor city, we're not a poor state, but we are a cheap state. And due to, in the past, of not fully funding things and a lot of slush funds, I wouldn't say slush funds, emergency funds if things happen, which every department should have. Some are a lot bigger than others. If it really came down to, Missouri's in a good state, but it is going to be very tough with COVID because we have lost some revenue. To be able to make sure that we not only continue to fund things that we did, but even to push for more funding for new things and opportunities is going to be hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, anyway.
Oh, go ahead, Trish.
No, I was going to say, budget has a lot on their plate. So.
Yeah. Mary Gross just asked, where's the budget money we've heard former Representative Lavender talk about? That's what Representative Aldridge was just referencing.
Yes. Representative Lavender is an extraordinary, as someone who came on budget last year, it was an honor as a freshman coming in. It's a lot to learn, and you don't learn it all in one. I'm still learning. But Representative Lavender know how to, and we all got her a little junk drive. She gave us some cheat sheets, know how to find money. And like Elizabeth said, there's more money than sometimes we portray to say that we don't have, that we do have in departments that have been just sitting on it for years.
Okay, one more question is from Teresa Waters, which is a genius idea, and I hope we steal it. Do different districts ever consider being sister districts, like pairing a city and a county district to get to know each other and how we can support each other?
I don't think they do, but I think me and Trish adopted it.
I think we've started that.
Yeah,
I think that's a great, I mean, I don't know, did anybody else take you up on your offer to tour?
Nobody else. Nobody else. Besides you. And I mean, I think it's even with me living in the city and Trish living in the county, and people think, oh, in the house they just call us all St. Louis, and St. Louis lady from St. Louis County, that we're all St. Louis, and Kansas City is Austin, but there's still so much that we all can learn. St. Louis County looks St. Louis County, West County looks different from North County. North County looks different from South St. Louis City. South St. Louis City looks different from North St. Louis City. We all have our challenges. And I think, we're stronger together, but I'm not trying to continue to say better together. I'm saying stronger together. We're stronger together, and being able to learn from each other. I've learned so much from Trish, and just being on the Zoom, I feel like I am a part of the 99th district. I've been scrolling through and seeing Joseph Face and Miss Rita. I feel like I'm now part of Miss Diane, part of the 99th district, and that's what it's all about.
It is. It is. I do want to, I was just thinking back to the book question. I want to encourage folks on this call who are white to read the book, Waking Up White. I think that's a good book if you have not started exploring race issues. It's a really good primer just to kind of, it gets you thinking about a lot of things. And it's some of the books that a lot of times are recommended are more academic in nature. And Waking Up White is a real good one, just to kind of explore the issue, and it makes you think about things in a different way. So I would encourage that. I know we're getting close to the end here. One of the things that, and I don't know if you've ever heard of this, Rasheen, is there is something called living room conversations. And here are the resources, I'll hit this real quick, or go to my resources, I think, Elizabeth.
Yeah, I think it's on there.
So these are going to be available. I mean, you can print this or we'll email it to you. These are resources that I personally have utilized. And one of the things I'm wanting to start, and actually this is even something we could do across districts, to be honest. This group called Living Room Conversations, what it does is it doesn't allow for debate about topics. It's more an understanding of where people stand on different issues. This platform has 100 different topics, and they suggest that you gather in small groups, like of 7 to 8 people, and they provide opportunities to do it virtually. And they provide a whole list of questions, and all people do is answer the questions. You do not question people about their answers. You don't dive real deep in that sense. There are some topics that are much more comfortable maybe to talk about. There are others that are not so much. And one of the things that I think was impressed upon us yesterday during the inauguration is the idea of unifying and coming together, certainly as a country and as a region. And, people are in their corners in many cases, and they believe a certain way about certain things. And one of the things I want to do is to open up this as a possibility to where if people are interested in creating a group, if you wanted to email Elizabeth and we would basically put you together, if you read through the thing, it really literally takes you by the hand. And I did one of these virtually online that talked about how to talk about race. So you can find out more about that. But I think it's a way to just begin having a conversation without getting folks to have to defend their positions. You answer questions in such a way that, from what you hear, it makes you just kind of understand that person a little bit better. But because you're not going to have to defend your position, you kind of walk away just, this is why I believe the way I do about this, end of discussion. And then you can build on that, because I feel like in all of this craziness that we are living through right now, we're just trying to make our way and be the best version of ourselves. The bottom line is people want to be heard. I don't care who you are, what you believe. You want to be heard. You want to believe, and you want people to believe that you're important and you have something to say. And I think that is what has gotten us in some ways to where we are, is segments of the population have not been heard. And whether that's race related, whether it's socioeconomically, whatever. And so in doing that, you tend to act out, and it doesn't get better and it doesn't go away. And if we don't get a handle on this, it's not going to look good for all of us. So that's one thing I would like to encourage people to do. You can read through the rest of the guide. All of those are things that I've involved myself with. I highly recommend. You can go to my website if you need to contact me. Again, online survey is coming. It's not up and live yet, but I would encourage you all to follow along and listen to House debate. You can go to a link when we're debating on different bills that come through. You can go to committee hearings. You can hear bills that go through and how committee members and how there's testimony around hearings on different legislation. You are going to be able, if you want to travel to Jeff City, you can do that. I mentioned they're not allowing virtual testimony, but you can mail in or email your testimony. So those are ways. And if you have questions or concerns, reach out to your reps and your state senators. Let them know how you feel about things. We also suggest, don't do form letters. We get a lot of those. People pay attention more to things that are really written from the heart. So follow along. I mentioned fastdemocracy.com. Rasheen's talked about the budget, and this Missouri budget project is a way to kind of, it has a top line approach to the budget, but if you want to dive in a little deeper, it can do that as well. But I don't know, Rasheen, if you have parting words for us. And then I have a closing thought.
I would say, one, thank you, Trish. Thank you, Elizabeth. And thank you to all the great residents of the 99th. And it sounds like we got a friend from the 98th. Thank you all just for having me. No matter where you come from, we're all family. Each one of you guys is now family. And if it's ever anything like more partner opportunities with the 99th, just know the 78th district is ready. I do really appreciate, this opportunity on we're in a tough time in history, from the stuff that we've seen at the Capitol to now a new administration. And hopefully, like Trish said, it'll be more unity. I think when we are able to come together, no matter your party, no matter what you believe, we can get some things done. We may disagree on the outcome, but we can still be able to come together and make sure the patty of the meat is actually good. Or if you don't eat meat, I also understand that. But all that being said is, I am really, because I want to be inclusive. And there's a lot going on. And for us to be able to, the week of Martin Luther King birthday, to be talking about race, me as a Black male, young, and many of you that do not look like me, thank you for allowing me to be in your living rooms and us having a conversation. Some things you probably agree with me with, and some you didn't, and that's okay. But us being able to listen and understand others is more important than anything. I'm really excited tomorrow with being able to come together. Me and Trish has an opportunity to talk about race in a different way with the Busch Stadium, being able to say this has happened in our history. This is an ugly part of our history, but how do we make sure we take this moment to allow people to know that we want to heal and move forward? So very thankful for the opportunity, Trish, for coming to partner with you with the Busch Stadium. Hopefully, Marker. We have a conversation with Bill DeWitt, the owner of the Cardinals. So I'm sure Trish will keep the residents of the 99th updated. But I am just honored to be here and look forward to always coming back.
Thanks so much, Rasheen. Appreciate it. I'm going to end with a quote from W. Kamau Bell. I don't know if you have watched his show. He did a show on CNN called Emmy Award winning called United Shades of America. He's a stand-up comedian. And he says the biggest thing that I believe white people can do is to get really comfortable being uncomfortable having conversations about race and racism. And I think that's what we need to do. If you are having these conversations and there is not discomfort, then you're not making headway. And so ask those questions in a respectful way, engage yourself, be involved, check out my resource list, reach out to Rasheen or myself. And we're happy to kind of tell you our experiences, but I'm just hoping that you walk away from this and you reach out to your networks and find ways that we can just all be better humans. That's my goal, is to just be a better human. So with that, I think I'll just say thank you. My next town hall is going to be Thursday, March 4th. And I am going to have another special guest, Eric Fay, with the St. Louis County Board of Elections. And he is going to walk us through elections in the county and why they do such a good job and have handled so much this past election cycle, and will hopefully alleviate any fears people have around voter fraud. Because I think when you hear the way things really happen, it will hopefully squelch any issues you may have around that topic. So March 4th, Eric Fay, St. Louis County Board of Elections. So that's it, everybody. Stay safe and well, mask up, and thanks again. Bye-bye.